Yeah, let's get started. Welcome everyone to Carvel's community meeting and open discussion. Today's November 11th and it's getting chillier, but hopefully our conversation is going to keep your hearts warm this morning. So we have majority of our maintainers here today, and then yeah, let's get started. What are some of the announcements we have today?
Yeah, so I'll be giving our announcements today. And to start off, we have released a new version of vendir, so vendir version 0.12.0. And this new release has given the ability to specify pre-releases using semver, as well as it has made the kind secret key value pair expected to be base 64 encoded. And then the remaining release notes you can find there linked. As well as we have our KubeCon office hours, and those will be November 12th or November 20th, 10 to 10:45. And you can come pop in, meet us there. It'll be exciting for our appearance at a second KubeCon this year. I think that wraps up our announcements for today.
Cool. Welcome, Jorge. Good to see you.
Hey,
thank
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think the next thing we're going to do, we're going to jump right into our tech forum here, and the overall topic is about taking a step back from image package. So in order to sort of periscope up, kind of look around, where have we been? What do we have right now? Where are we headed? So that's the kind of general theme of this. Nothing we say is going to be commitments to things, but we'll be musing on ideas of things that could be. So, so Eli, I know you've been really a big part of conceiving of and getting the image package stuff started. I think we were talking about having you kind of lay the stage here for talking about image package. Want to do that?
Yeah. Did we just want like a little background first, or?
Yeah, it's like why did this thing come into being? What was not quite right about whatever the situation was, whether something was missing or what have you, and and then maybe kind of differentiate its scope from where it came, things like that.
Yeah. So image package is essentially a tool that's built for the packaging and distribution problem area of like deployments and lifecycle. This behavior was previously in kbld through like the packaging docs, which you can see from the forum or the agenda. Because Carvel follows the philosophy of having purpose-built tools that solve one issue, it felt like we were overloading kbld because kbld had other responsibilities like resolving image references from Kate's manifest, and it just felt like we were putting too much into kbld that it wouldn't be able to solve both problems well, or as well as they could be solved. So we split out image package to introduce a new concept of bundles and make the packaging relocation polling experience a little bit better for anybody using it. That's sort of where it stands now. We've added this concept, like I mentioned, of a bundle that allows users to interact with a single image as if, and be sure that everything that their config depends on is sort of moved along with it. Right now we have the push, pull, and copy commands. So they pretty much do what they sound like. Push, you can bundle up a set of configuration on your file system, it'll throw that into a tarball and add it as an image layer. So then you can distribute your configuration through a Docker registry. The pull command does pretty much exactly the opposite. It will take something from the Docker registry and unpack the image layer onto your local file system. So then you're able to then use the config that you've just unpacked in tools like kbld, ytt, cap. And then copy does what it sounds like as well. Like it'll copy the bundle image and any images that the config references to either another registry, or if you're doing offline relocation, to a tarball, which you can then unpack on whatever network is internal using image package as well.
So is it correct in saying that kbld only has package and unpackage? So it's like extract to a tarball and then upload from a tarball? Or is there?
You're able, in kbld, you're able to do registry to registry as well. So I think there is a kbld relocate command.
Gotcha. And so we pulled those two commands. We're pulling those two commands out of kbld eventually. We're ported over to okay.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then
I was just gonna say the intention is to sort of have kbld not responsible for any of this stuff, and everybody that wants to do relocation or distribution using image package.
Cool, but we have people who are currently using kbld for some of those features right now, so we're gonna leave that stuff in there for some foreseeable. Okay.
Yeah, we'll do like a deprecation window and everything, and then take it out.
Cool. All right, and then trying to think about like the delta there. So one of them was the bundle itself. Trying to think about like why is the bundle important? Why does it matter? Problem is it solving?
For the most part, it's like a quality of life sort of improvement. So instead of having users manage their config and the images that config references separately and have to like distribute and relocate all these things individually, the tool provides this bundle abstraction that allows them to copy over a single image in a registry, but in reality, it's copying over their config as well as all the other images that it needs. So it allows the user to sort of forget about the distinction between those two things and treat them as like a single entity.
Gotcha. Okay. Anybody have any questions about like the origins of image package and generally what problem it's trying to solve? Hey, Dennis.
Hi there.
Cool. Okay. I'll wait for you to finish sneezing. Bless you. I guess the next part is, so where are we at today? Like, what is sort of our definition of like the first iteration of a tool that we want to put in users' hands? What does that look like? What should it have?
Yeah, so right now the MVP has those 3 commands. So you're able to create a bundle, pull a bundle, and relocate a bundle. It also works with like generic images. So you can use the tool to just do basic image relocation, either registry to registry or via a tarball. That's sort of the scope of it now. There's not too many fancy features in it.
Yeah, there's something in there about validating bits as they go by.
Yeah, it does a couple different validations. I think when you're pushing a bundle, there's certain conditions that need to be satisfied about the bundle, which then provide the consumers a consistent interface. So any automation they have set up is guaranteed certain files will be there. So they don't really need to worry about it. There's I guess that's really most of it. There's like sort of validations internally that are doing things like validating digests and all that that aren't really as user facing.
Cool, but it's part of what the tool is providing the user, right? Is the assurance that when you transfer things, they're checked, so you be assured that the transfer is successful.
Yeah, and everything is done via digests except for the bundle image itself, which you do have the option to relocate via digest. So there's like a good guarantee that all the images you're moving around and relocating are the images that you want.
Gotcha. Okay, there's a couple different directions we could kind of take this conversation. One is for folks in the room that maybe have a sense of sort of where we're at in the industry in terms of packaging. Just like we saw recently, there's a Kubernetes enhancement proposal around something like that. There's some prior art around some packaging stuff. So that's an option. The other thing we could get into is what are some of the things that we're pretty clear about what we might tackle next, so like a future roadmap. So let's take that first question first. Has anybody done any research or has looked at all or has any thoughts about like where we're at, as especially focusing on Kubernetes, like where we're at in terms of packaging and distribution? Anything that you've seen or used?
There was that one tool mentioned, I forget the exact name, ORAS or something, which follows the same sort of idea of using a Docker registry for storing.
Yeah, I think that's a tool that was used to prototype what Helm support for storing Helm artifacts would look like in the registry.
Does that have any sort of like defined structure, or is it similar to how image package is just sort of a section of the file system that you can create?
I don't recall, to be honest.
What was the name of the project? Oras?
Yeah, ORAS.
Is that by the Deus folks?
Yeah.
I can't seem to find a repo. Let's.
Yeah, I should link in the chat.
Oh, Deus Labs. Got it. OCI registry as storage. So is that seems like sort of a lower level, slightly lower level problem that they're solving there?
I haven't looked too much into it. I just saw that somebody had called it out at one point of being something that follows a similar idea of using Docker registries as like storage, which is quite similar to image package.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else that we know of that is sort of like prior art or current art? People trying to solve this problem?
But truthfully, I'm not 100% familiar with the tool itself, but I do know that Scopio is another tool that sounds kind of similar. Jorge, I know that you might have more perspective on how similar this sounds to image package or not, but might be something that people can check out as far as whether or not it sort of aligns.
So Scopia, I will say that is more of an image relocation tool than an image package. So it's used to move images from OCI registries to Docker registries to file system to things like that.
What's the name of the project?
Scopio, it's on the chat. There is a link.
Oh, thank you. Ah, okay. I think one question that we've heard from time to time is why not CNAB? Dimitri, I know that you were involved in some earlier exploration around that. Do you mind summarizing like what you learned there?
Well, the idea here is, I mean, this is not really, I guess I would say, directly related, but image package just uses registry as a way, to bundle up a bunch of files together and transfer. It does not try to describe what to do with the bundle itself, versus CNAB, has the certain contracts around it, like, oh, there's an action that would call to install things and whatever, right? So there's the executable part of, part of the CNAB artifact, right? Which, we would like to decouple that from the actual bundle. If you want to use a bunch of other software to work with the bundle contents, great, but at least in my opinion, it has nothing to do with the actual bundle contents. Now, there could be some metadata describing what to do at a later point by something else, but it's not a essential piece of the bundle. So CNAB takes that approach.
Do you think in general it's a kind of anti-pattern that a bundle is executable in that way? Or is that going too far?
I mean, you're now in a very subjective territory. I'm sure it solves various problems. And, it also, you could argue, maybe introduces some problems by doing that. So image packages, I would say, a different take on that boundary between the execution versus the content. We'll see. Maybe it shakes out great. If it doesn't.
Yeah, trying to feel our way through those boundaries. I agree.
I feel like
yeah.
the problem here is more what you define as a bundle, right? Because in CNAB, a bundle is a group of things that you are going to install. That's what a bundle means in CNAB. So it totally makes sense that a bundle is executable and is installable, right? And in here, it looks like we're talking that a bundle is just like a bunch of files. It's not really a thing that you're going to install. So I feel like that the problem here is the naming, and as we always do in our nice fine art, we just name the same two different things the same thing, and expect everybody to understand more or less.
My argument, I would say, does not relate to the naming. I just use bundle in both of those cases. It's not the name, it's the sure, call it something else, foo, right? I don't want foo to be executable because I would much rather have foo have, appropriate content and metadata and have the execution be done by something else that maybe is more controlled. So I would say, at least my personal opinion on this, does not do with the naming, even though there's overlap in the name.
It's an interesting footnote. That's a good point. You bring up, Joao, that bundle is used in a number of contexts to indicate something that is executing. That, like, maybe we can explore the name of the thing that you move around. I've seen terms like package, which feels a little bit more like a noun than a verb, thing that's less likely to, or it's a collection of stuff. So words are hard, and yeah, they have different interpretations, but yeah, that might be helpful to be able to differentiate between the thing that is intended to just be something you move around versus something that has some active component to it. Cool. So we can kind of bounce around, but I thought the next thing would be interesting is starting to explore some of the things that we're considering next up for image package. What are some of those, Eli?
Yeah, I think right now, probably the next thing would be like recursive relocation. So if a bundle references another bundle, then like handling both of those as if they were bundles to allow sort of relocation of like catalogs and stuff potentially. So you've got some set of apps that you want to distribute, you can create a bundle that references those and then be sure that when you relocate the catalog, then all the apps also come along with it. And then also starting to think about some ideas around signing. So how can we do identity verification of a bundle to make sure that like VMware is actually the one that distributed a certain bundle. We do get content guarantees currently through digests, but there's still no validation of who actually is distributing or created the bundle.
I just pasted a link to there's a working group that I guess is composed of various organizations, and I'm pretty sure there's some VMware Harbor folks in there as well that are working on the support for signing verification APIs within the OCI organization or community. So at least I was planning to try to attend one of those meetings, but I keep on missing it on Monday. Separately from that, there's actually a feature that yesterday I thought about that would be useful to add, is to be able to pull image package pool from the tarball that you previously made through copy. This means that you may not actually have registry on the side that you brought in your tarball, but you still want to access certain images and extract the content out of them. So today pool strictly pulls from a registry, but it would be nice to add functionality to pull from this collection of images, if you will, that's been turboed up. So new feature request.
So the difference here is that when you pull, you're getting the bundle alone, not the images downloaded into wherever you're pulling into. And so you're saying it's useful to be able to target a tarball where there isn't a registry that you can pull from, where the tarball contains the configuration and the images identified in the bundle, and just be able to do that pull to continue the workflow without having to first copy your tarball up into a registry.
Yeah, I'm saying that the tarball contains all of the information that technically one needs. And so for people who do have a registry, they can freely put it into a registry. But there is some cases where image package may be useful for loading up the data that's just saved on disk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would, if I have a tarball with a bundle contents or just a regular image contents, right? If I do an image package pull on that image and provide the output directory for the exploded, artifact, right? Then it would just read up out of that tarball and explode that out, right?
Yeah, are there like specific, like what do those use cases look like when somebody they don't have a registry available yet they want to be doing work on a bundle locally?
Well, so a very concrete case that yes, there was discussing was that if you are in a very constrained environment where you need to preload some images, you just don't have a registry. That kind of really becomes the end of it, right? And so in the case of cap controller, for example, it has ability to say pull a particular image for configuration. And so today pull, of course, happens from the registry. But if there is no registry, then where do you pull from? And so in some constrained environments, you actually have to pull it from the disk that's just sitting on each, whatever, like in a place where cap controller has access to it. And so by having image package potentially even transparently looking at, hey, do I see those images in my local, tarball place, right? Versus like, do I see it in a registry kind of thing, right? Because in those cases, like there isn't even a registry to pull from, so there's no point in contacting anything because there's nothing to contact. So that would be the one case. I think, I guess maybe the point to add there is if we are able to do it based on, let's say, digest, right? Then it doesn't really matter where the contents come from, right? The digest, it's that absolute thing. So, you can kind of even consider it as a local cache, right?
Right. Huh. And then it makes me wonder whether or not there's a mirror use case. It sounds like it's really useful on consumption, but I'm not sure I see anything there in terms of like a push that pushes to a tarball.
Well, copy is a push to a tarball.
Right.
Or I guess you're saying that you wouldn't even want to push to a registry first. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, could be that as well. Yeah.
Huh.
I don't really have a use case for that, but I guess because like, for example, I don't really know of any distributors that might be running in this kind of a constrained way. So they would imagine having a registry there.
I seem to remember another like potentially useful thing that was mentioned about uploading images to nodes, like so that users can use them without access to a registry. They're just pulled locally on the node.
Yeah, so that's kind of similar to that, right? Where when we, I guess, today we have a copy, right? And our format is proprietary, if you will, for the tarball, right? It's just something that image package knows. It's not standardized, right? Intentionally. And so there could be a use for being able to say, well, image package copy with a destination in the OCI directory format or something like that, right? That, let's say, containerd can understand, right? And that again kind of goes back to, well, it would be possible then to, let's say, build a AWS AMI that contains the, the bits, if you will. But I think there's potentially other tools that may be able to help you with that. I don't know how there's I guess a balance between us doing it for convenience sake because it's so easy versus delegating it to some other tool that's better at doing that. I guess maybe with bundles, because you may want to be exploding out the entire bundle, right? Then we would have to be the ones to decide which images to explode into the into a directory.
Yeah, so the other thing that you'd mentioned, Eli, was the can't remember how you describe it, but it in my head it landed as like recursive bundle references. So that was an interesting use case. You mentioned it's like a catalog that like 2 layers where I have a thing that references that like is a set. Sorry, I have a overall bundle that represents a set of bundles. Each one of those are a kind of product, and this higher level thing is sort of a suite that I want to move around together. Are you purposefully trying to not think about like infinitely recursive bundle dependencies? Were you deliberately sort of thinking about specifically 2 layers, or is that just a concrete example that you're thinking of?
Yeah, just a concrete example. I think we would definitely have to have some sort of checks within the tool to make sure that there's no loops or anything, but I don't see a reason to limit it to two layers or 2 levels.
Gotcha.
But yeah, definitely want to avoid the infinite loop scenario.
No cycles in your DAG, please. Cool. Are there other things that are sort of specifically we're not going to tackle, or that we could be interested, but it's pretty far down the road? Are there any things that we've come up with in that category?
Nothing in particular comes to mind right now.
Helen, are you aware of anything like that? Things that are specific anti-goals?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. Cool. So, are we at MVP? Are we close to MVP? What's our story here in terms of like a tool that we're ready for folks to use?
Yeah, I think like feature-wise we are. There's still a few touch-ups that we'd like to make to the docs before releasing and calling it available, but I think it's available or ready to be played around with. All the features that we planned out for MVP have been implemented and included. I think we'd also like to do a little bit of internal use of it before releasing, just to be sure that each individual feature that we built fits together nicely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think with that, if like anyone from the community that's interested in, giving us feedback about it, I think that would be really super helpful.
Yeah, and Helen, are you thinking that in terms of just try it out, and if there's anything good, bad, or awkward, create like a GitHub issue?
Yeah,
In the
either
image
GitHub
package repo?
issue, Slack message, or
Hmm.
if you want to do a more in-depth kind of like analysis of it together, that could work too. In however way that folks are willing to provide feedback.
Cool. All right, so kind of chunking up just before we leave this topic. So we're talking about packaging and image package in particular. Did anybody have any thoughts that came up as we were having the conversation? Didn't get a chance to speak up.
I was just curious, as part of the docs that are being released or anything along those lines, is there any and I know that we have like the basic sort of getting started scenario with like all the various tools that come in Carvel. Is there any plans to like add image package like as part of that like hello world scenario, or just like part of the basic docs there, so that people can kind of like have that guided workflow of getting started with it?
In the actual repo, we are planning on adding a couple of use cases to the docs, which are hopefully going to be like a set of commands with descriptions about what they do that capture a full workflow. So I think one that we are definitely planning to do is like the offline relocation. So showing the whole workflow from creating the bundle to pulling it to a tarball to then unpacking the tarball and then pulling it on the other end. Or, yeah. And maybe some other ones. Like I don't know what all we threw in this story the other day, but yeah, we're definitely planning on adding that to the repo at least. Do you think there are other places that it would be useful, like other starter repos that we have maybe?
No, I think for now, maybe it'll become more apparent over time as more use cases are revealed and we have like a better sense of how everyone is going to use the tool. Then it would be more reasonable to like add it to other places. But I think for now, just starting in the repo for it itself sounds good to me.
So touching on what Daniel asked, I think that you probably are familiar with the Tanzu developer portal and how we have surfaced now the ability to do workshops with the Educates platform. I think that it could be beneficial to try to work out some of this getting started or documentation as workshops, and then link from your side into the Tanzu developer portals workshops. So there is a way for users to have a playground, to experience the tool in action, rather than to just look at the documentation and try to do that themselves on their own platform, which might be complicated sometimes, depending on bandwidth and things like that. So I'm just offering our help from our team to help you get started on that. And Daniel, obviously, he has a lot of knowledge on how to do that. So.
Wow, Danny, you just got voluntold.
Yeah.
Not the first time, not the last.
I think that's why Jorge's here to help you out with that. Yeah, thanks for the offer, Jorge. That sounds terrific. I think that's providing that kind of experience is a great. We want to provide a lot of sort of front door options when folks show up. Some people want to just jump in, kick the tires, and redox. Other people like to have a curated tutorial. A lot of folks do, and having that support around it and the infrastructure around it would be great for us to make use of. Appreciate the offer. We'll be talking about that. Anything else on this topic? All right, wow. Wasn't necessarily planned, but we're actually right at our time. Helen, do you mind closing this out here?
I have a topic which is not in the agenda. I don't know if that is possible or not, since I know that.
Yeah, let's take a couple minutes here. Go for it, Jorge.
Okay, so I was last week I saw one new CLI flag that you have guys created for KApp, which is something like show df alpha, something like that. Which I was asking in the GitHub why the experience, why the CLI has the alpha flag or the alpha word in it, because then the problem is that whenever it promotes to non-alpha, you'll need to change the CLI. And then I was doing a little bit of a review of all the tools. And one thing that I've constantly been asking is that there is no consistency from tool to tool on how they works. So for example, if you run some of the tools without any flags, they will give you no option. Some other ones will print the help. Some other ones will print the help plus an error. Some other ones will print an error directly, and then the flag. So my ask is that if there can be some consistency moving forward, like or in the future, and some like developer experience thought into what the UI or the let's say the developer experience aspect of the CLI can be, because this can be a problem for people if they automate things using this flag and then the flag changes the name. It can break people. So it's like for backwards compatibility, you shouldn't change type of flags unless they are, they are marked as alpha, obviously, but it will, whenever somebody updates, it will break them then.
Yeah, so I'm hearing from what you're saying, sort of the general theme of there's a couple different things that you see that that are inconsistent across the tools. So yeah, that's something definitely look into. I know Dimitri, you did a lot of work on that particular flag. Did you want to talk about that one?
Yes. So backwards compatibility is something that is obviously very, very important. I really hate when tools break. So there needs to be a way to indicate, right, that something is not ready to be solidified and made to be relied upon, right? So the flag that I think is in question is diff UI alpha was intentionally added as an alpha feature, and it was annotated, in that as a suffix alpha, with the intention that if we do expect it to, if you will, graduate eventually in its maturity, that at some point the alpha thing will be removed. Now, because it's also a UI component, right? None of our CLIs offer a live UI on top. This made it even more kind of a reinforced that, hey, we should put it as alpha because we don't quite know how we want to actually keep this set of functionality long term, right? Today it's a web UI, maybe that changes, maybe not, maybe the web UI changes, right? And so that's why that specific flag is marked as alpha. I do expect that if we do have any other flags that have a significant suspicion that they may change, they will also be annotated as alpha. And then the expectation would be is, when they do graduate to something more stable, then the alpha will be, removed. I think this holds true similar to, changing API version for Kubernetes resources, right? When you go from V1 alpha to V1 beta to V1, things like that, right? It just happens that we only have one flag today that we feel is not as stable as all the other flags. Hopefully that kind of shows the thinking behind this.
No, and I understand the thinking, and I think that you answered in GitHub, Dimitri. But the problem is, to me, maybe it's my perception of how people should feel from the user interface of this. Maybe you're right; it's an API, but if you look into some other tools, there is different ways to mark things as alpha. So the experience, the CLI, the integrations, and everything doesn't break if they is promote to stable. I understand that in Kubernetes whenever you look into the API and the resources, they are marked as alpha, but then the experience that manage all those interfaces, like all these kubectl commands and everything like that, they don't change, or if they change, it's because they have been marked as alpha in the documentation, but the command itself doesn't change.
So that's not quite true. So kubectl has an alpha subcommand, and under that alpha subcommand, there is other commands that are marked as alpha. And so when they graduate, they move, away from the alpha subcommand to, let's say, the root command. It's just not something that, again, for most of the features, that's not a question, because let's say we feel strongly that it's stable enough to not be marked as alpha, but there still needs to be a non-documentation differentiator to indicate that, hey, watch out, this is alpha. So for example, if you did want to rely on diffui flag in your code, you should be very, very aware that it is alpha feature and it is annotated that way intentionally, right? So it is, I guess, the experience of this flag is intentionally done that way, and it is an experience, right? I guess it sounds like you don't necessarily agree with the way that alpha things should be annotated, but I would say that for questionable functionality that may even go away tomorrow, right? We don't want people to rely on it as if it's stable, right? Because documentation, stating something in documentation that it's stable or not stable, typically isn't large enough indicator to somebody that it may just go away.
So just a note, there are, for instance, like tricky ways with Cobra that you can sort of support, like renaming a flag, but also having these, like the flag of a previous name still work. And there's also like ways to even print like warning messages if someone uses a particular like name of that flag to like warn people more explicitly. So there are kind of workaround ways that we could potentially explore as far as making sure we don't break people, but also like having a steady progress to get the flag name exactly how we would like it one day. So there's potentially options to like have a compromise for both perspectives.
Okay, yeah, sounds. I mean, I understand the rationale. I just didn't I didn't feel really consistent. But yeah, I do agree that there might be like use cases, and if you want to be explicit, I understand that. Then related to consistency, I guess that's a different story. Consistency between the different tools.
So yeah, the other thing that you mentioned is consistency about various tools, and I think, I don't know if you have other examples. I think the example that you filed on GitHub was regarding the root command being specified. Maybe Daniel actually filed a root command being specified without any flags and behaving differently. Is that the one you're referring to?
I mean, that's one example of it, but yeah.
Are there other examples that would be worth kind of keeping in mind?
Not that I can think of now, but yeah, we can definitely look into putting those into a GitHub issue.
Yeah, I think we definitely want to make the experience, at least between these tools, consistent. The one for the root one is an interesting one, right? Because it's kind of it's like different tools have slightly different functionality, right? And so in some cases, it's perfectly valid to have a scenario where, like for YTT, right? Today, if you give YTT 0 flags, it'll just exit with no output and exit status 0. And so that's done on purpose to allow people to potentially dynamically have, you know, like when they're scripting with YTT, right? If you are doing some kind of a dynamic variable substitution or whatever, there are cases where you actually don't end up with any kind of input, and so you just want an empty output, right? Versus, for example, for cap, there's never a case of where you want to run cap without, you know, like in YTT, the root command is the templating command, right? Versus in cap, there is no root command, right? And so that's why cap, for example, shows you an error message saying, hey, you didn't actually give us the command to run, versus YTT happily says, hey, there was nothing to do for me. I am running the templating command, and you know, because there's nothing to do for me, I exit successfully. So the way I look at it is there is a consistency on a kind of a meta level of what operation we're doing, and if that operation succeeds, then it's exit status 0. And so in YTT, we do the operation of templating, and with 0 inputs, it's successful. Versus in cap, there is no operation to do, hence it's exit status 1, because you've given us a wrong thing, right? So that's at least the way I rationalize that level of consistency. But you know, there's obviously other ways to look at it.
Yeah, that's I understand that's consistent in the rationale that you are mentioning. But if you look into cap, you print out the help, and if you look into vendir, for example, you don't. So there is no consistency in whether you are erroring without, because you are erroring and you're saying, hey, you need to specify one command. In one of them, you are showing the help so the user knows what command to run. In the other one, not. So there is where the consistency is failing, right?
Yep, that case I would agree. I think that actually is an artifact of us not updating to the particular Cobra miscellaneous package we have that does some, you know, kind of a generic configuration. So cap, I think, might be using I don't know, a newer version versus vendir is using a older version. But yeah, the intent would be is that both of those cases would actually be printing out, let's say, help message and the error, since in vendir case, there is no root to run.
Cool. Well, Jorge, really appreciate that feedback and that you've been contributing in various ways. And again, you showed up offering to help out with the onboarding experience. Really appreciate your support in the project, sir. Thank you. And yeah, this is great. Let's keep talking about these kinds of things. You can see that like where we miss out on one of our own goals, we love it when we get feedback to help get better. And then to be able to like unpack rationale, sometimes the conversation will result in we'll say, no, that affirms a certain kind of thinking about things, but it's important for us to be critical of our own thinking. So appreciate all of that.
Yeah, I do wonder where we can kind of continue with this topic, because you know, it doesn't really make sense to file it against only like an issue against one of the tools, right? We probably want to, I don't know, maybe like a design docs issue that kind of solidifies this kind of a, I guess, design choice, right? And of course, it could be revisited if there's a need, but maybe that could be a more central place that affects multiple tools.
And you're thinking about, hey, where it's with respect to the suite as opposed to an individual tool, where would we do that? Where would we have that conversation?
Yeah, because the example that was just brought up, right, of vendir, for example, not doing something, but cap is doing something, right? Like I was not aware of that part, right? And so the question would be is, I mean, yeah, we would want to file an issue against vendir, right? But is there some place where we can say, here's the general patterns that we use across multiple CLIs that, you know, comply? And then we can always have individual issues to fix the discrepancy.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll huddle. In the maintainer team should huddle up, and then we'll figure out where that place should be. And then Jorge, we'll reach back out to you, and kind of help get that particular one started and use that as a way of figuring out how to make that kind of feedback easier and have it in the right spot.
Sure, no problem.
Cool. Thanks again, man. Okay, well, definitely have to call it a time. Want to respect people's time. Helen, can you close us out?
Yeah, a few items. So we have this agenda item on HackMD, and you'll have the link. It's in Slack. You can find it. And for the future, always feel free to add your topic there. It would be really great if we know various topics ahead of time, so that we can give more time for that, because we do want to hear from community members. And yeah, so that's one. And then also there's a feedback form. If there's anything that we can improve on, let us know. Also, we'll be uploading the recordings to YouTube channel. So I'll add a link into this agenda doc so you can see. We started recording the previous one and this one, and then the future will record them as well. So recordings of these meetings on a YouTube channel, and you'll find the link embedded in this agenda at the top. So stay tuned. Thanks everyone for joining today. Have a good rest of your day. See you soon.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.